My name is Sarah Mitchell, and for 8 years, I quietly paid my family's mortgage while they treated me like a second-class citizen. I never asked for recognition, just basic respect. But that Sunday afternoon changed everything. I remember standing in our family's expansive kitchen, the afternoon sun streaming through the windows I'd helped replace last summer. The marble countertops I'd secretly funded gleamed under the new lighting fixtures that my latest loan had paid for. The aroma of roasted turkey filled the air as our extended family gathered for what was supposed to be a celebration of my father's retirement. "Sarah, the plates need washing," my sister Madison called out from the dining room, her voice dripping with that familiar condescension. She was hosting the party, though it was technically still our parents' house. The same house whose mortgage I'd been paying since Madison's husband lost their family savings in a failed business venture. I dried my hands on a dish towel, trying to ignore the ache in my feet from standing all day. As the CFO of one of the city's largest investment firms, I was used to power lunches and boardroom meetings, not playing servant at my own family's gathering. But they didn't know about my success. To them, I was just Sarah, the responsible one, who helped with bills through her office job. "Coming," I replied, walking toward the dining room with a stack of fresh plates. The scene that greeted me made my heart sink. The long table was set beautifully, crystal glasses catching the light, name cards placed precisely at each setting. Everyone was there: my parents, Madison and her husband James, our younger brother Michael, aunts, uncles, cousins. But there was no place set for me. "Where should I sit?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Madison looked up from her phone, that familiar smirk playing across her lips. "Oh, Sarah," she said, her voice sweet with fake concern. "You know how it is. Limited seating. Besides, someone needs to handle the serving and dishes. You can eat in the kitchen when everyone's done." Our mother, rather than defending me, just nodded in agreement. "It makes sense, dear. You're so good at managing these things." I stood there, plates still in hand, as the weight of 8 years crashed down on me. 8 years of monthly mortgage payments drawn quietly from my account. 8 years of covering property taxes, repairs, and utilities. 8 years of watching Madison and Michael take credit for helping the family, while I silently kept the roof over their heads. "The help eats in the kitchen," Madison added with a smirk, turning back to her conversation with our cousin about her upcoming luxury vacation, probably funded by the money she saved not paying her share of family expenses. That was the moment something inside me broke. Or perhaps it was the moment I finally woke up. I set the plates down carefully, my hands steady despite the storm raging inside me. Without a word, I walked to the kitchen, picked up my purse and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" my father called out. "We need those plates." I paused at the door, turning to face my family. They stared at me with varying degrees of annoyance and confusion, as if a servant had suddenly stopped following orders. "I'm going home," I said quietly. "And tomorrow I'm making some changes." "Don't be dramatic," Madison rolled her eyes. "Just do your job and eat in the kitchen like always." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw not my successful, confident older sister, but a parasite who'd been living off my hard work while treating me like dirt. "You're right, Madison," I said, my voice clear and calm. "I should do my job. My real job." As I walked out, I heard them resume their conversations, probably already forgetting about my little scene. They had no idea what was coming. That night, sitting in my penthouse apartment, the one they'd never seen, I made a call to my attorney. "David, remember that contingency plan we discussed? It's time. Start the proceedings first thing tomorrow." I ended the call and walked to my home office, pulling out the file I'd prepared years ago. Inside was every record of every payment I'd made on their house, every repair I'd funded, every bill I'd covered. But more importantly, it contained the documents showing I'd quietly bought the house from the bank 3 years ago when my parents were about to default on their refinancing. They'd been living in my house, not theirs. They just didn't know it yet. I poured myself a glass of wine and looked out over the city lights. Tomorrow they'd learn exactly who they'd been treating like the help all these years. Tomorrow everything would change. But tonight I allowed myself to feel the pain of their betrayal one last time before locking it away forever. The next morning dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully in my best power suit, a stark contrast to the casual clothes my family was used to seeing me in. As I stepped into my office at Mitchell & Global Investments, My secretary Emma handed me a stack of papers. The eviction notices are ready, she said quietly. And David called. Everything's in place. I nodded, running my fingers over the embossed CO nameplate on my desk. Another truth my family had never known. 8 years ago when I founded this company, I chose to keep my success private, thinking my family would be proud when I finally revealed it. Instead, I'd watched them take advantage of my generosity while treating me like their personal maid. At precisely 9 a.m., a courier delivered the eviction notices to each family member living in my house. My parents, Madison and James, and my brother Michael, who'd been temporarily staying in the guest house for the past 3 years. By 9:15 my phone was exploding with notifications. I let the first dozen calls go to voicemail, calmly reviewing quarterly reports while my family's world imploded. Finally, I picked up Madison's call. "What the hell is this?" she screeched, her composure shattered. "Some company called Mitchell & Global is claiming they own our house. They're giving us 30 days to vacate." I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Not 30 days, Madison. 7 days. There was a pause, then, "Sarah? What do you mean?" "Check the letterhead again, sister dear. Mitchell & Global Investments. I founded it 8 years ago. I'm the CEO. I could hear her breathing quicken. "And yes, I own the house. Have for 3 years now." "That's impossible," she whispered. "You work in some office downtown. You're nobody." "No, Madison. I'm your landlord. And I want my house back." The silence that followed was deafening. I could almost see her mind racing, trying to process this new reality. "You can't do this," she finally managed. "Mom and Dad already received their notice," I cut in, "along with an itemized list of every mortgage payment, repair bill, and utility payment I've covered for the past 8 years. It's quite a substantial amount." "We're family," she protested, her voice rising in panic. "Family." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family doesn't make their own sister eat in the kitchen like a servant. Family doesn't. "That was a joke," she interrupted. "You're going to throw us out over a stupid joke?" "No, Madison. I'm throwing you out because for 8 years, I've paid for everything while you've treated me like dirt. Remember last Christmas when you told everyone you'd paid for Mom's new kitchen? That was my money. Remember Dad's retirement party you hosted? I paid for that too. Sarah, please." Her voice had turned pleading. "James and I can't afford." "Not my problem anymore. 7 days, Madison. And don't bother asking Mom and Dad for help. They're in the same boat." I hung up as she started to cry. My hands were shaking slightly, but my resolve was firm. The next call came from my father. I let it ring twice before answering. "Princess," he started, using the nickname he hadn't called me by in years. "There must be some mistake." "No mistake, Dad. I own the house. Have since you nearly lost it to foreclosure 3 years ago. Remember that mysterious refinancing that saved you? That was me buying the property outright." "But, how? Where did you get that kind of money?" I leaned back in my chair, looking out over the city skyline from my corner office. "I founded one of the largest investment firms in the city, Dad. I'm worth over $100 million. Not that any of you ever bothered to ask what I actually do for a living." The silence stretched between us, heavy with unspoken regrets. "Why didn't you tell us?" he finally asked. "Would it have mattered? Would you have treated me differently if you knew I was successful? Or would you have just expected more money while still making me eat in the kitchen?" He had no answer for that. 7 days, Dad. I want everyone out." My mother was next, alternating between tears and accusations. Michael tried threats, claiming he knew important people. I hung up on all of them. By afternoon, the family grapevine was buzzing. Aunts, uncles, and cousins called one after another, some pleading for mercy, others condemning my cruelty. I blocked their numbers one by one. That evening I drove to the house, my house, knowing they'd be waiting. Sure enough, they were all gathered in the living room. Mom, Dad, Madison, James, Michael, and even a few aunts who'd obviously come to witness the drama. I walked in wearing my CEO clothes, not the casual wear they were used to seeing me in. The room fell silent as I entered. Madison spoke first, her earlier hysteria replaced by calculated sweetness. "Sarah, sweetie, we've been talking. We were horrible yesterday, we know that now. Let's work something out." I looked around the room at the faces that had watched me be humiliated countless times without ever speaking up. There's nothing to work out, I said calmly. This is my house. I want it vacant in 7 days. You can't just throw your family out on the street, my mother protested. Why not? You had no problem making me eat in the kitchen just yesterday. That was different. Madison interjected. Yes, it was, I agreed. Because yesterday you thought you had all the power. Today you know the truth. I pulled out a folder and set it on the coffee table. This contains records of every payment I've made for this house over the past 8 years. Mortgage, taxes, repairs, utilities. It comes to just over $480,000. They stared at the folder like it might bite them. I don't want repayment, I continued. Consider it payment for teaching me a valuable lesson about family. What lesson? Michael asked sullenly. That sometimes the family you're born into doesn't deserve you. Madison started to cry again, but I noticed she was still clutching her designer handbag. The one she'd bought instead of contributing to last month's property taxes. 7 days, I repeated. Anything left behind will be disposed of. Where are we supposed to go? James demanded. I smiled coldly. Perhaps the kitchen? As I turned to leave, my father called out one last time. Sarah, please. We can change. We can do better. I paused at the door, remembering all the times I'd hoped to hear those words over the years. You had 8 years to do better, Dad. Time's up. The next week passed in a blur of legal meetings and ignored calls from family members. On day 7, I drove to the house with my attorney. It was empty, though they hadn't cleaned up after themselves, their final act of petty revenge. As I walked through the rooms, memories flooded back. Madison's smirks, Michael's entitled demands, my parents' indifference. But they no longer had the power to hurt me. I hired a cleaning service and put the house on the market. It sold within a week to a young family with 3 small children. As I handed them the keys, the mother asked why I was selling such a beautiful home. It served its purpose, I told her. It taught me what I'm worth. Months passed. I heard through the grapevine that Madison and James had moved to a small apartment across town. Michael was couchsurfing. My parents had downsized to a condo, their retirement dreams significantly altered. They still try to contact me sometimes, usually when they need money. I delete their messages without reading them. The only family member I stay in touch with is my Aunt Clara, who called me the day after the eviction notices went out. I watched them treat you like that for years, she said. I should have said something. Why didn't you? I asked. Because I was a coward, she admitted. But you weren't. You stood up for yourself. Last week I received an invitation to a family reunion. I took one look at it and dropped it in the shredder. My real family now consists of the people who value me. My friends, my colleagues, my employees who respect me not because of my position but because of who I am. Sometimes I drive past my old house and see the new family living there. They use every room, eat together at the dining table, and fill the space with genuine love and respect. That's what a real family looks like. As for Madison's famous last words, the help eats in the kitchen. Well, they've become something of a joke around my office. I had them engraved on a plaque that sits on my desk. It reminds me every day that I'm nobody's help and I never will be again. The last I heard, Madison was working as a waitress at an upscale restaurant downtown. Apparently, she eats her lunch in the kitchen during her shifts. Karma, as they say, has a sense of humor.